of hosting Madam Fatima Karia Mohammed. Thank you. So let me recognize also the UN, our representative from UNDP, but also all the other ministers. Senegal is represented here by an ambassador. We have also the ministers of Niger, who is with us. We have also the Minister of Gambia of Foreign Affairs, who is here. And we have ambassadors as well, ambassadors of Uganda. We have also other ambassadors in the room. So let me just say, Excellency, all protocol duly observed. And the members of the Africa Women Leaders Network who are in the room, and those who are really connected from everywhere from Africa. I know that our patron, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, is on the way. She will be with us very soon. So I just wanted to say that while she's coming, I want to warmly welcome all of you in our house here in New York. I really thank Your Excellency, Mr. Musa Faki Mohammed, for the leadership that you have demonstrated at the helm of the African Union Commission, and for championing the gender equality agenda, but also the parity principle that our leaders have adopted at the top level. I think your dedication and openness to women agenda has afforded us this movement, the movement that we have seen today, which has born out of the two institutions, AU-UN framework on peace and development. Excellency, I think that we are celebrating many achievements. I think we declare the decade that are coming that it is gateway, but we also know that it will be on financial inclusion as well. So we want to thank the leadership of the AU for making sure that, you know, the women leadership matters, it matters so well. So we have seen it in this room, women leaders, our commissioners, our deputy, our ambassadors. We have seen that AU is progressing very much, like the United Nations is also following our step. I also recognize all the ministers that are here. We salute you, especially ministers of foreign affairs. We have few of them now, but some in the room. And we know that we need the men. That's why the notion or the issue of positive masculinity must go on. And we are very happy to have few of you in this room as well. So our team today, Women Leadership in Multilateralism, Building Peace and Promoting Inclusive Development in Time of Crisis, come at the juncture of our crisis: food, fuel, finance, fertilizer. This is the crisis we see. So I think I will stop there just to say we are going to have a discussion which is led by our two co-chair here, the Friends of Africa Women Leaders Network, which is South Africa and Germany. And in Addis Ababa, we have the Friends, which is co-chaired by Germany, but also by Uganda. And we're very happy to have Ambassador of Uganda in this room as well. So I will stop there, and without asking our president, notre président, Moussa Faki Mohammed, d'ouvrir cette session que nous avons à l'accoutumée d'organiser en marge de l'Assemblée générale. Merci, Votre Excellence, d'être parmi nous. Vous avez un agenda très chargé, mais vous avez voulu être là, comme d'habitude, et ouvrir donc cette discussion des femmes africaines à New York. Vous avez la parole, Votre Excellence.
Merci beaucoup, Madame Diop. Madame Naledi Pandor, ministre des Relations extérieures de la République d'Afrique du Sud, chère sœur, Madame la représentante du gouvernement d'Allemagne, Madame la vice-présidente de la Commission de l'Union africaine, Mesdames les commissaires, Madame l'envoyée spéciale Femmes et Paix de l'Union africaine, Madame l'envoyée spéciale Jeunesse, distingués invités, Mesdames et Messieurs, même si les messieurs sont aujourd'hui minoritaires. Je voudrais vous souhaiter à toutes et à tous une chaleureuse bienvenue ici dans votre maison, le siège de l'Union africaine à New York. Maison très bien tenue par l'ambassadeur Fatimé Kiari Mohamed. Je profite de l'occasion pour la remercier et la féliciter pour l'excellent travail qu'elle fait à la satisfaction de tous les États membres et à la satisfaction de son chef que je suis. Cet événement de haut niveau, en marge de la 77e session de l'Assemblée générale, et qui porte sur le leadership des femmes dans le multilatéralisme, consolider la paix et promouvoir un développement inclusif en temps de crise. Chères sœurs, permettez-moi aussi d'exprimer ma gratitude à votre marraine, son Excellence, Madame la Présidente Sirleaf Johnson, dont le leadership constant accompagne vos actions depuis le début. Elle en soit vivement remerciée. Nous devons la mise en place du réseau des femmes leaders, à la détermination, à l'engagement des grandes pionnières dont quelques-unes se trouvent avec nous aujourd'hui. Je vois Madame Ineta Diop. Je sais que ma sœur Amina Mohamed serait certainement occupée, sinon elle serait avec nous. Le réseau des femmes leaders dont les objectifs cadrent avec la vision et la politique de l'Union africaine en matière de promotion et de participation de la femme est admirable et mérite d'être soutenu. Je voudrais me féliciter de l'accompagnement dont les partenaires ont fait preuve et les remercier tous. Une citation particulière mérite d'être à l'Allemagne, présente à travers Madame Amsberg. Mesdames et Messieurs, plus de 5 ans après sa création, en dépit du contexte socio-économique difficile, marqué notamment par la pandémie de la COVID-19, le réseau des femmes leaders a su s'ériger en un robuste réseau exprimant la volonté des femmes à s'auto-promouvoir et à faire partie des instances de prise de décision en Afrique et dans le reste du monde. Les femmes ont de tout temps joué un rôle crucial, parfois mieux que les hommes, dans bien des circonstances historiques mondiales, et j'ai la conviction qu'elles feraient davantage encore dans les nouveaux temps. Aucun domaine n'a échappé à la contribution des femmes, militantes engagées dans les mouvements des indépendances, dans les luttes pour la liberté et les droits de l'homme, la médiation, la paix, la réconciliation, la reconstruction post-conflit. Les femmes leaders ont non seulement contribué à la réalisation de l'égalité entre les sexes, mais elles ont surtout pris une part active à la marche et à la construction de nos sociétés. J'ai à mes côtés une grande militante de la lutte contre l'apartheid. C'est un exemple vivant. Ce faisant, un cadre fédérateur et précurseur du devenir des femmes dans la gestion de la chose publique, le réseau des femmes leaders se doit de préparer le chemin pour la jeune génération de leaders. J'en vois une en face de moi qui est notre envoyée jeunesse. C'est en cela que la mise en place des caucus des jeunes est à saluer. Il témoigne de la volonté de passer le témoin. Je voudrais terminer par réitérer le ferme engagement de la Commission de l'Union africaine et le mien propre de vous accompagner dans cette noble et exaltante mission. Assurer le leadership féminin de demain se construit aujourd'hui. I believe strongly that future is female. I thank you.
So hashtag future is female. Hashtag. It has to go everywhere. Thank you. Thank you, Excellency. I think you set the tone, and we can have our deliberation. But let's first of all recognize Madame Marie-Louise Wange, who will be speaking right now, the chair of the national chapters. I think we need to listen to her because we have 30 national chapters right now in Africa. And we need to have more. But she is going to tell us, the one who is the first one to be established, Madame Marie-Louise Wange, who was a minister in charge of gender in DRC. You have the floor, Madame Wange.
Merci beaucoup. Merci beaucoup, Madame Ntadio. Excellence, Monsieur le Président de la Commission de l'Union africaine, Mesdames et Messieurs, en vos titres et qualités respectifs, au nom de tous les chapitres nationaux du réseau des femmes leaders africaines, AWLN en sigle, que je préside, je tiens à vous remercier sincèrement d'avoir rehaussé de votre présence à la tenue de ce forum de haut niveau qui se tient en marge de la 77e session de l'Assemblée générale des Nations unies sur le leadership des femmes dans le multilatéralisme. Bâtir la paix et promouvoir le développement inclusif en temps de crise avec comme objectif la mobilisation des responsables de haut niveau autour des questions par l'ordre mondial actuel, les menaces pour la paix et la stabilité et les effets liés au développement durable et inclusif. Le réseau AWLN est un mouvement africain, que dis-je, des femmes africaines leaders se retrouvant dans tous les domaines politiques, sociaux, civils, institutionnels, professionnels, agricoles, entrepreneuriaux. Créé en juin 2017, ici même à New York, le réseau est constitué actuellement de plus de 30 chapitres nationaux travaillant sur les piliers thématiques. Il comporte en son sein plus d'1 million de femmes et compte mobiliser 5 millions de femmes d'ici 2025. Ce réseau, qui est une plateforme mondiale unique de plaidoyer et d'influence, est constitué de femmes africaines dirigeantes et professionnelles accomplies et issues des différents domaines, milieux et générations, conformément à l'agenda 2063 et au programme mondial de développement durable à l'horizon 2030. Le chapitre RDC que j'ai l'honneur de représenter ce jour constitue le tout premier bébé de AWLN. Il est né en 2017 et compte en son sein 3 pionnières qui sont Excellence Madame Eve Bazaïba, qui est l'actuelle vice-première ministre et ministre de l'Environnement et du Développement durable, qui à l'époque faisait partie de l'opposition et aujourd'hui se retrouve à la majorité. Madame Marie-Madeleine Kala, la pionnière issue de la société civile et ancienne ministre aux droits humains, et moi-même ici présente, qui à l'époque faisait partie de la majorité et fut ministre du genre, famille et enfants. Tout ceci, c'est pour vous montrer l'inclusivité du réseau. L'Afrique nous a tout donné et nous devons le lui rendre. Nous avons l'obligation Je disais que l'Afrique nous a tout donné et nous devons le lui rendre. Nous avons l'obligation de changer l'image de cette Afrique pour que les générations futures ne nous accusent pas de n'avoir rien fait. La femme, élément vecteur par excellence du multilatéralisme, constitue déjà plus de la moitié de la population et son rôle transversal n'est plus à démontrer car elle constitue un atout majeur dans le développement de cette Afrique. Car, comme on dit, donner à la femme, c'est donner à la communauté. Car c'est par la femme que cette Afrique changera son visage. Ainsi, je lance ce jour la campagne de 5 millions de femmes mobilisées d'ici 2025. Je vous remercie.
Merci beaucoup. Monsieur le Président, vous venez d'entendre l'engagement des 30 chapitres, la présidente. Donc, 5 millions de femmes mobilisées dans les 30 chapitres. Ici, c'est un mouvement qui est né d'ici 2025. Je voulais, Monsieur le Président, vous me permettez de signaler donc l'arrivée de son Excellence, Monsieur Mamadou Tangara, qui est le ministre des Affaires étrangères, de la coopération internationale et des Gambiens de l'étranger de la République de Gambie. Welcome, sir. Aussi l'occasion de dire que nous avons Madame Assa Reckner, la directrice exécutive adjointe de ONU Femmes, qui est là également avec nous, et la représentante de Standard Bank de l'Afrique du Sud, qui nous certainement, l'Indeka Dedze, qui nous parlera du fonds de AWLN. Je annoncerai au fur et à mesure les excellences qui vont arriver tout à l'heure. Sans plus tarder, je vais donner donc la parole à Madame Louise Amsberg, qui est représentante de l'Allemagne, commissaire du gouvernement fédéral pour la politique des droits de l'homme et l'aide humanitaire au ministère des Affaires étrangères de la République fédérale d'Allemagne. Je voudrais souligner que l'Allemagne a été avec nous depuis le début, depuis la naissance de AWLN, et continue d'être notre partenaire privilégié. Vous avez la parole, Madame.
Thank you, esteemed leaders and members of the African Women Leaders Network, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. I'm really glad to see so many allies in the fight for more female leadership of the African Women's Leaders Network. It's now 30 chapters. Wow, and I congratulate you on that. It is really, let me say, I'm really impressed and humbled by your work and your achievements. And I'm also very grateful to be here today. Thank you very much. So, ladies and gentlemen, we are currently faced with a worrying multitude of overlapping crises: the worsening global climate crisis, the COVID-19 pandemic, Russia's war of aggression against Ukraine and other emergencies, as well as the resulting energy and food crisis, which are undermining development in African countries and putting the trajectory of the SDGs at risk. Because of structural discrimination based on their gender, made worse by intersections with other forms of discrimination, women and girls in all their diversity are more exposed to the negative effects of these crises. In order to tackle these challenges, we need to empower women around the globe to be able to powerful agents of change who work for the common good and contribute to more stable, peaceful, and just societies. AWLN is a prime example of this, of female self-organization and agency. It shows what we can achieve together when we have the necessary resources and when structural barriers are addressed and eventually overcome. And this is why Germany supports. I'm so excited and impressed to see how this network has grown and is deeply involved with many chapters across the African continent. The African Women Leaders Network is a truly shining example of women's leadership and multilateralism, of working together to prevent conflict and promote inclusive peace and sustainable development. And ladies and gentlemen, ensuring equal rights in letter and in spirit with full, equal, and meaningful participation and equal resources for women, girls, and marginalized groups is also a key element for Germany. For our new government, feminist foreign and feminist development policy are an indispensable foundation for securing peace, stability, and prosperity for all. The political, economic, and security crises we face are not gender neutral. They affect all genders differently, and their root causes are gender related too. Several studies have shown that empowering women economically leads to sustainable growth for society as a whole. This makes societies more resilient in responding effectively to internal and external challenges and crises. We need to transform gender roles and power relations and challenge the too narrow assumptions of traditional economic thought. This is necessary in order to ensure women's financial and economic inclusion, which the African Union has set as its goal for this decade. We also need to stay strong in the face of the ongoing backlash against women's rights. An international consensus supporting women's full and equal enjoyment of their human rights, including their rights to sexual and reproductive health and self-determination, is crucial. For the anti-gender movement, sexual and reproductive health rights often serves as an entry point for a broader pushback on women's rights and gender equality. Backsliding on women's rights is, in turn, often a symptom of an overall democratic decline. On this front, too, we must therefore be aware of the gender dimensions of overall political developments. In this regard, the women, peace, and security agenda is even more important. It is crucial to take a stand for the rights and representation and the resources of women in all their diversity, as well as marginalized communities. I'm really glad that we share these goals and are in this fight together. And I look forward to talking to all of you about the instrumental role of African women's agency in achieving greater equity, fairness, and stability, more peaceful societies, more inclusive governance, and of course, to learning from you and your inspiring examples. As a wise person said earlier, the future is female. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Madam Commissioner. Yes, the future is female. And thank you for the continued support of Germany to the AWLN, but also to the Women, Peace and Security agenda and other agendas. So thank you for co-organizing with the South Africa. So give me the pleasure now to introduce Excellency Dr. Grace Naledi Mandisa Pandor, who is Minister of International Relations and Cooperation of the Republic of South Africa, but also one of our champions on women, peace and security, but on gender equality as the entire agenda of the continent, as a leader of this continent. So thank you, Madam, for being with us, gracing us of your presence. You have the floor, Madam Minister.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, Madam Bineta Diop, the AU Special Envoy for Women, Peace and Security. I wish to recognize His Excellency, Mr. Faki Mahamat, Chairperson of the African. I wish to recognize all my distinguished colleagues, the ministers, and all guests present here today, ambassadors and high commissioners, dear friends and colleagues. Actually, while I certainly will refer to the inadequacies associated with gender equality, I wanted to begin by saying your presence here in your numbers as very powerful women indicates that the women's struggle is making advances. And I make that point because it's very important that you don't create an impression that your struggles are failing, that there isn't progress. I think we should always mark the advances while demanding more. So this is an important point, but nevertheless, I'm really pleased to be participating in this really important meeting. I think the theme is absolutely appropriate to what is confronting the world today, as Madam Emsberg said. And I think it is important that we as women reflect on the challenges of today, particularly issues of peace and security, and of course, the promotion of multilateralism and a world that is much more inclusive and that ensures all of us have a role in decision-making. So it's an important topic and allows us to reflect as we navigate new and emerging challenges to global peace and security, and to our desire to meet the goals of the Sustainable Development Goals 2030. Challenges that we confront are, of course, structural barriers to the effective implementation of the Women, Peace and Security agenda, which calls for women's full and equal, meaningful participation in peace processes and transitions. These are made worse by the lack of political will, particularly lack of funding in support of women's organizations, as well as enduring gender stereotypes. I don't like to cause trouble, but I think we should put to the Secretary General, and maybe UN Women could do that for us, that while indeed they can continue to have the election of the President of the General Assembly annually, but it must change its gender from year to year. Because I just think, having a male every year just feeds into the notion that there aren't women leaders who can play this role. So in order to change, things have to be made a rule. If there isn't a rule, you won't have change. So I do think the women who are here, who are able to exert influence within the UN body, you need to raise this. I should tell you that we are hoping to save you from this male pattern because we are putting forward a woman candidate for 2025. But it's just something I observed as a little disturbing. I think it's absolutely important that we continue always to have a holistic and multi-stakeholder approach to addressing the development challenges all of us are agreed upon. We need to continuously shine a light, not only on the plight of women, including civil society organizations and peace builders around the world, but we must amplify their constructive and essential contributions to peace building, to gender equality in political and private life, as well as to enhancing governance, decision-making, and security sector reform. I would like to acknowledge the good progress made by the African Women Leaders Network, whose national chapters, you've been told, have grown. And I'm pleased that we have a chapter in our own country, South Africa. What I have noticed is that these chapters have galvanized support and engage in crucial advocacy efforts drawn from the various pillars of the network, the pillars of governance to political participation, pillar of peace and security, pillar of finance and women's entrepreneurship, pillar of youth leadership, of agriculture, and of social cohesion. So what this event does is create an opportunity for us to engage primarily with women, particularly women from the continent of Africa, who are still the most vulnerable and who are often at the receiving end of the impact of new threats. These include those threats caused by climate change and its effects, by food insecurity, which drives divisions among societies, which cause food insecurity, creates hunger, leads to malnutrition, particularly among children, and so poor learning outcomes, and of course, forced migration, a particular experience of women in times of conflict. Fueling all of this are the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, the global economic downturn all our countries experienced, and acute inequalities as well as poverty. We've got to find ways of addressing all of these, led by our governments, led by the African Union, our organization. There must be discernible solutions, and these must be inclusive of all sectors of society that are affected by these challenges. I'm pleased that in our continent, women have been advancing efforts to enhance inclusive and intergenerational participation. If we take the example of the network of African women in conflict prevention and mediation, which is popularly known as FemWise Africa, they've deployed over 36 members on short and long-term assignments to support various conflict prevention and mediation efforts. They've always been supported by the AU liaison officers, as well as electoral and peace-building missions. South Africa is very proud that we have our own chapter of FemWise Africa, whose focus is advocacy and capacity building. In addition to this, the African Women Leaders Network has innovatively operationalized Resolution 1325 and its subsequent resolutions by working locally and regionally, focusing on local level initiatives through local Women Leaders Network national chapters. The national chapters have also conducted high-level fact-finding missions. For example, in 2020 and 2021, even with the challenges posed by the COVID-19 pandemic, the network held virtual solidarity missions to Mali and Mozambique, highlighting and responding to challenges presented to women and girls in political transitions, as well as those affected by violent extremism. These examples of women's contribution demonstrate the importance of increasing women's participation as mediators and in other conflict-ridden tasks. Thus, these examples show that the pandemic did give opportunities for the inclusion of women from all over the continent and from our partners across the world to participate in meetings, in discussions, all of them seeking to advance the broad objectives of the network and to increase the participation of women. What is great about digital engagement is that while not all of us may have access to it, they do create an opportunity to ensure no one is left behind. Used appropriately, they can be an amazing organizational tool. And I think we should draw on it more and more as women, because through online and digital communication, we can reach women anywhere. So let me say, although we have noted progress, we believe the application of quotas to create more equal and meaningful participation of women in mediation and decision-making needs to be implemented in earnest. You know, in my country, South Africa, you actually have to be afraid to go anywhere with a delegation of males only, because it is possible that the audience you're meeting with may very well do something rather dangerous. It has become a tradition in our country that all structure, meeting, initiatives must be diverse. So the notion of dark suits all over the room is now challenged in South Africa. And all of us must insist on that. And we should be checking, even my colleague, Minister from Gambia, I see you've got ladies with you there in that row. I hope they're all women from Gambia and that you brought them as part of your delegation, because that is what we should do. This is what we should be seeing more and more of. I also call on all of us in the broader international community to redouble our advocacy for women's peace building, as well as the inclusion of youth as change makers. We also take this opportunity to echo the calls made by the UN Peacebuilding Commission, of which we've been a member for the last 2 years. The call says we should ensure adequate, predictable, sustainable, and flexible funding for peace building. This commitment to advancing peace building was also demonstrated by the UN General Assembly's adoption of the landmark resolution on financing for peace building on the 8th of September 2022, just this year. Member states will also recall that the second Africa Forum on Women, Peace and Security, which was held in December last year, underscored the need to enhance the implementation, monitoring and evaluation of sub-regional continental frameworks and mechanisms related to peace building. As a country, we also contribute to peace building through the African Union's Peace Fund and through our own African Renaissance Fund, as well as through our India, Brazil, and South Africa, or IPSA, Facility for Poverty and Hunger Alleviation. We are open to exploring how we, through these funds, can support peace-building initiatives and programs led by the African Women Leaders Network and its Young Women's Caucus. Additionally, in the context of the Youth for Peace initiatives, we encourage the network through its Young Women's Caucus to find synergies with the Peace Building Commission's Strategic Action Plan on Youth and Peace Building. In order to build greater success through all our initiatives, we have to find how they can complement each other and how we use those complementarities to build coordination so that our efforts have great impact. Welcome to Madam President. Wonderful to have you. If we coordinate effectively, what we would be able to do is we would identify where the gaps are. So where are we not seeing women participating in political institutions? Where are we seeing women not participating in leadership in the private sector? Which are the countries we should target? Then we can organize pickets and ensure that we profile the lack of positive practice. I wish to share with you that we've also continued as South Africa to provide support through our annual Youth and Women's Training Program on conflict resolution, mediation, and negotiation offered by my department. And we have benefited immensely from support of the chairperson of the AU Commission, the Special Envoy on Gender, Madame Diop, our colleagues in Germany, our friends in Norway and Sweden who support this initiative. We have since 2015 continued what we now call the program, the Gertrude Schoppe Annual Dialogue Forum, named after our veteran of the struggle, Gertrude Schoppe. It is based on the life and work of another South African peace-building pioneer. The forum seeks to empower women to support peace and stability initiatives in their communities. Further to this, we've established a Gertrude Shoppe Brigade, which is a grassroots women's network focusing on political participation, mediation, conflict prevention, and dialogue. This has also led to the establishment of what they call the Women's Peace Table, focusing on women-led peace building, social cohesion, and reconciliation. I must say that our colleague, former Minister of Gender of the DRC, Madame UNGA, has been a leader in this regard. So strengthening local, national, and regional mechanisms, institutions, and tools that already exist will help us to make progress with our objectives. We are pleased that we have a range of partners, such as the joint United Nations African Union framework for enhanced partnerships in peace and security, the United Nations African Union Memorandum of Understanding on peace building support, and the African Union Continental Results Framework for monitoring and reporting on implementation of the Women, Peace and Security Agenda in Africa. All these are instruments that can assist us to strengthen the inclusion of women peace builders in peace processes. They also allow us to enhance the operationalization of the African Union strategy for gender equality and women's empowerment, which was our agenda that we as women in Africa set ourselves for the period 2021 to 2028. We have 6 years to make sure we succeed. We also remain encouraged by the gender strategy of the Peace Building Commission and the implementation plan they've developed, which we believe can be a support to peace operations on the ground. So let me conclude by saying that in building peace and promoting inclusive development in times of crisis, we must ultimately always ensure that all women are brought into negotiation and decision-making processes. I think this is absolutely vital. And as women, we really should say no conclusion without our involvement. Absolutely vital that it's vital that we're always there. Otherwise, women will forever, in many, many jurisdictions, be left on the margins, and we can no longer afford that. So I wish this meeting well, and I thank you for having agreed to accept our invitation to just generate a discussion in this very important context of the UN General Assembly. And I hope the outcome of our deliberations will be greater progress for women. And I thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Excellency, Madam Pandor, for this. I think the youth of this room, but also all of us, the women, we take note of all the issues that you have put at the table. But at the end of the day, what we said is women have to be at the table. We have to be at the boardroom. We have to be there. No more, black suit sometime, but we make sure that we are there with our African dress as well. So thank you so much. We need to applaud Monsieur le Président. Nous venons d'avoir la visite, la présence de Madame Ellen Johnson-Sirleaf, qui est notre présidente. Welcome, Madam. We have listened to President Musa Faki Mohammed, who have told us one thing: the future is bright and the future is female. And I think we have also listened to our friend from Germany, Madame Louise Amsberg, who have also said that Germany will continue to support the Africa Women Leaders Network, but the global agenda in Africa on gender equality as well. So, Madam, you are very much welcome. We know that you have a busy schedule, And as you have listened to Madam Minister Pandor, was also giving us a brilliant, lecture, not a lecture, but some, I would say, some guidelines on how we can move the agenda forward. And we recognize the presence of Mato Joini, the ambassador, because you know that the two ambassadors, Germany and South Africa, are leading the agenda here very brilliantly. So I know also that we have the Vice Prime Minister of DRC, the Vice Premier Minister, Deputy Prime Minister. She's with us, Madam Eva Bazaiba, who will later take the floor, and also the representative of Senegal, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Senegal, her representative. So we wanted, before our chair is going to leave, that we need to just launch our photo book, Mr. President, just to hold it so you can have a picture before you depart the room, the photo book of AWLN, Mr. President. So can we give to the President and Madam President the photo book? Thank you. Before I give the floor to our President, Madam Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, let me just give the floor to the Chair of the African Union, the representative of Senegal. I think we have Madam Diop, who is here. Madam Diop, we have the same name. I'm very happy to see another Diop in the room. So Madam Diop, you are representing the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Senegal. Madam Diop, you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, dear Sis Binta. I must speak in French. Let me. Monsieur le Président de la Commission, Madame la Présidente du Libéria, Mesdames et Messieurs les ministres, Madame la modératrice, chers collègues, c'est pour moi un grand plaisir d'être là avec vous pour délivrer le message de mon ministre en charge des Affaires étrangères, Madame Aïssata Tall Sall, qui m'a instruite de vous transmettre tous ses regrets. Elle voulait personnellement faire le déplacement, mais elle n'a pas pu en raison d'autres engagements. Aujourd'hui, donc, je ne fais que la citer. Mesdames, Messieurs, en vos titres et qualités, chers invités, permettez-moi tout d'abord d'adresser mes vifs remerciements au réseau des femmes africaines dirigeantes pour la tenue de cette importante rencontre, ainsi que les chaleureuses félicitations pour la pertinence du thème. Il est inspiré certainement par la formule magique des Nations Unies, égalité, paix et développement. L'adoption historique en octobre 2000, faut-il le rappeler, de la résolution 1325 par le Conseil de sécurité a placé les femmes au centre des stratégies de paix et de stabilité mondiale et a reconnu le lien intrinsèque entre l'implication de celles-ci de manière égalitaire et équitable avec les hommes à la prise de décision et au devenir de nos sociétés, ainsi qu'à la prévention, à la reconstruction et à la consolidation de la paix. Face aux nouveaux défis et enjeux internationaux, le leadership féminin est important pour parvenir à une paix durable et pérenne à travers le monde et faire face aux chocs exogènes et aux crises socio-économiques. C'est pourquoi je voudrais réitérer le soutien du Sénégal au travail sans relâche effectué par l'ONU pour accélérer la participation pleine et égale des femmes à la construction de la paix. C'est aussi l'occasion de rendre un hommage mérité à l'Union africaine pour son rôle actif dans ce domaine à travers notamment sa stratégie pour l'égalité entre les femmes et les hommes et l'autonomisation des femmes 2018-2020. Mesdames et messieurs, faudrait-il le rappeler, en Afrique plus particulièrement, les femmes représentent environ 70% de la main-d'œuvre agricole et jouent un rôle essentiel dans les stratégies de résilience liées à la nutrition et à la sécurité alimentaire. Elles jouent un rôle déterminant dans toute la chaîne de production et de valeur. Leur efficacité dans toute intervention socio-économique pour une perspective de développement a également été démontrée. Toutefois, leurs efforts ont été intensément anéantis par les effets collatéraux de la pandémie à COVID-19 et des foyers de tension qui ont entraîné une hausse considérable des prix des denrées de première nécessité et des perturbations dans la conduite des activités de production et de commercialisation. La pandémie a également fait apparaître de profondes inégalités structurelles et a totalement bouleversé le cours des décennies de progrès accomplis en matière de participation des femmes au marché du travail. Elle a aussi augmenté la proportion de femmes vivant dans l'extrême pauvreté et accentué leur vulnérabilité à la violence. Aussi, devons-nous promouvoir une coopération multilatérale fondée sur le renforcement de leur participation à la prise de décision, l'organisation de consultations régulières avec les organisations féminines de la société civile et la mobilisation d'experts en matière de genre dans les processus de paix. La résilience et le relèvement post-pandémique ont mis en avance plusieurs impératifs, notamment les questions de stabilité, qui suppose un système multilatéral fort et plus efficace, capable de compléter les efforts nationaux afin de placer le monde sur une trajectoire de développement durable où les femmes auront un rôle prépondérant à jouer. Mesdames, Messieurs, les défis majeurs auxquels l'Afrique est confrontée pour mettre en œuvre des stratégies de résilience réussies face à ces problématiques sont particulièrement liés au non-respect et à l'ineffectivité des engagements en faveur de l'égalité hommes-femmes, mais également au manque d'investissement pour l'autonomisation économique des femmes. Il est donc essentiel de veiller à la mise en œuvre de ces engagements, de promouvoir un partenariat approfondi autour de l'agenda 2030 sur les objectifs de développement durable et de l'agenda 2063 de l'Union africaine. Des actions de grande envergure doivent ainsi être menées, notamment sur l'inclusion sociale et le respect des droits des femmes et des jeunes. Le Sénégal s'est déjà engagé dans cette dynamique avec l'adoption en 2010 de la loi sur la parité aux fonctions électives. Les élections législatives du 31 juillet 2022 dernier ont pu permettre une représentation des femmes à l'Assemblée nationale avec un taux de 45%. Belle illustration. De même, 2 femmes ont été nommées premières ministres respectivement en 2000-2002 pour la première fois en Afrique de l'Ouest et en 2012, une femme est actuellement ministre-chef de la diplomatie sénégalaise. C'est elle-même qui parle, qui devrait parler aujourd'hui. Par ailleurs, les femmes sénégales, sous l'impulsion du gouvernement et en collaboration avec la société civile, ont instauré un plaidoyer continu à travers un cadre normatif pour leur accès aux instances de décision et véhiculent des messages porteurs de changements durables dans la prise en charge des questions de paix, de sécurité et de développement inclusif. De même, l'État du Sénégal organise des ateliers de renforcement des capacités en faveur des femmes, des jeunes et des communautés sur les techniques de gestion managériale, de prévention, de médiation et de négociation, en sus de la mise en place de systèmes de financement et de cadres de mise en œuvre d'orientation et de suivi. Je voudrais terminer par un appel aux décideurs politiques et à la communauté internationale pour un engagement constant en faveur d'une implication forte et effective des femmes à l'établissement de la paix, du respect de leurs droits fondamentaux et de leur accès aux services sociaux de base. Fin de citation. Je vous remercie de ma attention.
Merci beaucoup, le Sénégal, pour nous rappeler que la parité est mise en œuvre au niveau de notre Parlement. Donc, je pense que ça fait partie, aux côtés de Rwanda et d'autres pays, l'Afrique du Sud, que les femmes sont à ce niveau également. Madam President and our chairperson, I think what we have heard today, before I give you the floor, is that we have 30 national chapters. And the commitment of the chair of the national chapters, the Faulin, that we will have more than 5 million in 2025 of women as a movement. And I think that's the commitment that I'm making. You have a national chapter in Liberia, but also, as Madam Pandora have said, in South Africa, in many places now 30, we need more. We know also that at the African Union Commission, with the leadership of Excellency Musa Faki Mohammed, our sister Josepha Sako have established a network of women, rural women. She will talk about it, but also political leadership that Minata Samate also have made a platform for women leadership in AWLN. So this is just the beginning. And we are sure that we will talk today about the fund that we have launched recently with the 60, in Monday, 60 million. It's not a pledge, it's already there with the Standard Bank, and they will talk about it very soon. So let's give you welcome you, madam. I know that you want to give us some thought on how we move forward. So, Excellency, Madam Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, who is our mother, but who is the one that I know since 1995, the one that have been elected in our continent, but the one that we know that is spearheading our work and who's aiming to make sure that there are more women leaders in this continent, especially at top level, at the presidential level. So, Madam, you have the floor.
Thank you. I'd like to start with apologies, of course, to our dear leaders who say that it's usually this week of high-level meetings. We never know how long it will take us to get from one meeting to another meeting. But I'm glad that I'm here while they are still sitting here. Our minister here. Thank you. All note sometimes with major disappointment, because when we look back at the 1985 Beijing conference, pledges our platform action that domesticated our country so that often commitments made would have then be translated into program projects that would enhance participation in society. But yet we know we've made progress, and some of it has just been at the speaker. Both that we've had many ascended positions of prime ministers, and our legislature, our parliamentarians produce large numbers. Very proud of what's happening in Southern Africa. Many of the number of women in parliament exceeded the point where our country, Rwanda, holds the largest parliamentary, not in Africa, but the entire world. And so we take big joy at that progress, but we still are not satisfied. We know that if we keep at the current pace, it will take us more than 100 years to achieve the gender equity that we would like to see. What that says, women are now even more committed to what it takes collectively so that have doctors, commitments, certain goals for their children, and all women committed to the areas here. Not particular. I'm sure the kind of dynamism, despite the obstacles, all of that, they are determined to establish, determined to invest their energy, commitment to rise above their own fears, that they're willing to be opposition, executive appointment, but also to be prepared to effectively out of thanks to the 5 years through those sitting right here in this podium, what we have been from work in Africa in days of their own emancipation. Carry the bird, carry the water, as it said, have provided a kind of strength for their own, have been very so. President Ramaphosa will break through on certain things. Actually, Mr. has said today, and also Ambassador who has been really a champion. But when it comes to work we're doing on the common agenda, the high-level advisory board, effective multilateralism, and I can't say more than enough for our how he by able unity to actually form African Union, who would not have the African his support, his encouragement. I would not have said and the driving force behind all of this, someone who requires sometimes stand in the shadows and to be the one that's always pushing you and persuading you and convincing you. Binato Diop, who so I always say with fantastic, well, if there's anyone who should be patron of this, and if anyone who be the leader of this, it's you, because those of us who have excelled to where we are, it's so because you were there in the background pushing us. You were there. And so her own goals, but that is now manifesting itself through AWLN, is to have the right to compete. That women out able habits. I must say that in one of the say, no, it's not just women that make women leaders. Yes, we probably have a little over 50% of the population. We still got the other 49%. And they're men, and they are the ones that are also going to be asking to be. We bring them talent so that they too can see why it's so important to have women leaders. Difference it makes in the peace and security of this, what a difference it makes in sustainable economic. So with that, I have to say, good to have the breakthrough. Actually, Congo has had to take over. And German authorities have meeting, asked for a end summit, idea being all the men together so they could tell us what more do we need to do to change the attitude? What more do we need to do so when we a meeting of women, we're not just all women, it would just be a meeting of persons. All be there. Let's go and listen. And so that meeting was held yesterday. I met with President Macky Sall and to remind him that the next meeting on him. And he's agreed to hold it later on this year. And I had to say to him, I said, you know, all we asked was, but you put that was meant of positive masculinity. And so, but the objective is the same. The objective is to see that and give encouragement, that they motivate, but they take position. 30 chip of AWLN that we now have already established. Look to other leaders, but ministers, it national. That we expect that they are going to dynamic their own countries. Obviously, African Union, that gap needs to be filled. So that's part of a long-term objective. My only word is working together. Our word to the world is all that contribute better work. And with their participation, we can then see that all of our countries lifestyle is what they are. Not only effective multilateralism, bringing again world as also inclusive. lives. I want to thank Germany that one of our champions who is the former Chancellor of Germany. That's a check. And the fact that we have looked to her for the kind of leadership that also kept the world peaceful. I'm a pretender. Thanks to all our people, all women, as you enabled condition of their life, all of you. Part of that will not stop coming here again and again. Our message, not stop going to the different flags for their leaders, talking about it, pushing it, up on politics. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam. Don't have anything to add to it. Just to say we will make sure that we follow whatever you have given us as, guidelines. And also for reminding just us that because of the chairperson of the African Union Commission, Musa Faki, who provide us with the space. Without the space, we will not do that. There was no constraint just to say, you women, you can move, and the space is your space, and make sure that you build the movement. So thank you for that confidence, Chair. And I have a co-lead here with the youth. You have put us together, the youth and myself. So she's going to lead the second conversation that we're going to have. And the co-lead, Chido, you take us to the next floor. But I know also that we have gentlemen there. We have the Gambia, the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Gambia is with us. And he will take the floor as well. But Chido, please, thank you. I know the chair is going to leave, so thank you because you have another appointment. Chair, thank you for staying with us. Thank you so much. Merci beaucoup, Monsieur le Président.
Excellencies, good afternoon. Such an honor to co-moderate alongside our Special Envoy on Women, Peace and Security, acknowledging our chairperson of the African Union Commission, His Excellency Musa Faki Mohammed, who joined us and has been supporting us in the first segment. If you may allow me to introduce our Deputy Chairperson, elected by the 34th African Union Assembly as the first ever woman to hold this position of Deputy Chairperson. Acknowledging our AWLN patron, Her Excellency, Madam Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, acknowledging our Deputy Chairperson of the African Union Commission, as mentioned, the first ever woman to hold this position. We would like to give you the floor, as we also appreciate that you're getting ready to travel soon, but thank you for making the time to address us today.
Thank you so much, Chido. Your Excellency, Madam Sirleaf, Your Excellencies, allow me to stand on all protocol that Madam Ineta Diop has already given. In the interest of time, I wish to share 4 points with my sisters and brothers in the room. The first one, of course, is a point of first and foremost to our patron, Her Excellency Mrs. Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, former President of the Republic of Liberia, for convening us and for your continued leadership of the network for the past 5 years. Through your leadership, the network has grown to 30 national chapters across the continent. And I take the opportunity also to salute ma sœur, la présidente des réseaux nationaux. It will be, of course, a remiss if I don't recognize my other sister, Her Excellency, Madam Ineta Diop, who has been a resilient champion, pushing everyone who matters for this network to grow and for the cause that it stands for to keep alive. To you all, those on whose shoulders we stand, I really say thank you. My second point is to recognize our partners. There are many represented by here by the Federal Republic of Germany, but also we have partners in the private sector. I can think of Standard Bank, who is a great partner on the AWLN Fund and many others. We still count on the continued partnership of this kind. My third point is that the role of women in multilateralism is fundamental. And this is true in history, but it's also true in future. We all remember our hashtag for today and tomorrow and forever, that future is female. From our chairperson of the commission, he or she in his own person. Beyond the normative framework that promotes women's rights, gender equality, we need critical mass of women in leadership roles so that that full transformation of the global governance is achieved. As a matter of fact, we can recall that over 22 years ago, the UN Security Council adopted Security Council Resolution 1325, which is linking women's agency, peace and security. But there remains a huge gap between its provisions and what exists in reality today. Women represent a tiny segment of peace negotiators, peace envoys, mediators, and peacekeepers. Yet, women are hugely involved and present in community level peace building. At the African Union, we are proud that actually we are setting the example on involving women in these peace and security processes, although there is still a long way to go. My last point is that to improve multilateralism, we must focus on addressing inequalities, the lack of inclusion, sustainable development, and peace and security. I will here give you just one example of some slow but very decisive transformation that is happening in this space. I will just give the example of the IMF. It's only a few years back when our two sisters got there, Christine Lagarde and Kristalina Georgieva today, that we have seen for the first time ever, the IMF have a gender strategy. IMF publishing about gender and diversity and the impact it makes in economic growth, in economic stability, in resilience, in lowering income inequality. They have started publishing the evidence that actually economic and financial policies can have an impact, positive or negative, on gender disparity. It had been unheard of until we got women in this space of multilateralism at that level, which is actually speaking to our decade for women's financial and economic inclusion and the Wi-Fi 2030 initiative that is framing our collaborative efforts to keep pushing on parity, to keep pushing on women's representation in the workplace, to keep asking for quotas in procurement and otherwise, to keep seeking for access to finance for women and youth businesses. We are talking of mobilizing. Here is another target. In addition to the 5 million mobilized women in the network by 2025, we have another target by 2030 of making sure that we unlock $100 billion going to the 10 million SMEs owned by women and youth by 2030. This is a target that Wi-Fi 2030 is after, and it will be at the African Union working with all the partners, our member states, our AWLN and other champions to make sure that these targets are achieved. Really, we need women leaders at the very heart of all multilateral efforts, especially those focused on peace and security. After all, this is a foundation for even the economy, for our health, for everything. We need to be living in a peaceful and secure world. And I see it, there is a huge role of AWLN in nurturing and promoting African women leaders to take up positions in the multilateral. I'll end it here by once more thanking you and calling all of us, members of the AWLN, in our various capacities to implement the various strategies and approaches identified in this event for promoting women's leadership and participation in multilateral. I thank you so much.
Thank you, Your Excellency, for such inspiration. We thank you for your time and in joining us today, understanding that you have to leave to catch a flight, but we appreciate. Thank you very much. Okay. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce the Executive Director for UN Women, Ms. Asa Regner, who would give us some remarks in inspiring the women in this room today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Madam President, dear friend Vineta, and everybody present in the room, all protocol observed. It's wonderful that also so many ministers are here today and prominent leaders, women and men in solidarity to support gender equality and women's rights. For UN Women, Africa is an extremely important region. It always has been, and it always will be. It is a priority for us. And it's an honor for UN Women to participate in this event. And we do thank the African Union for your partnership with the AWLN group of friends for supporting this event. I also think it is important to point out that we have this meeting in a very concerning time. As many said, we have many different crises that the world and the UN, African Union and other organizations are trying their best to deal with. And we know in Africa, the conflict in Ethiopia, we know an increase in undemocratic changes in government. We have the war in Ukraine globally. We have recurring climate shocks, as many mentioned. We have food insecurity and jeopardized livelihoods across the African continent. And we know that all of these crises have greatly impacted the lives of so many. And we know that women and girls are disproportionately impacted. Women and girls also comprise 70% of the total refugee population. And the limited democratic spaces have made it even more difficult for women to participate and lead in decision-making processes. Therefore, we need AWLN, obviously, and we need to work together. I was recently in Liberia, had a very interesting visit there. I'm very grateful to the Liberian government for their generosity and hospitality. I was also in Sierra Leone recently to meet with government, civil society, women's leaders, and other partners in these countries. I also saw, and we all know, and we know with the former president, Ms. Johnson Sirleaf, under her leadership, what women's leaders do for peace. And Liberia is still a peaceful country and a very volatile region. And we think it is extremely important to support all efforts in that region and all over the world, and women's leadership in this extremely important role. I'm also thinking while I'm listening to everybody that we do meet at a time, as I said, where also multilateralism, and that's the topic of today, is challenged in different ways. We have more tasks than ever, but actually are challenged in terms of funding to the UN, for example. We do have problems in the Security Council in order to take action in relation, for example, to the war in Ukraine, etc. And I do actually think that gender equality and women's rights is becoming more and more of an important purpose for multilateralism. And that is good news, since we know that women's leadership is also a solution to war and armed conflict. So for UN Women, it is very important, and it has been very important to partner with AWLN and this fantastic network. 5 years after the launch, we have proven that the concept works. The network, as we heard, is now present in 30 countries, and I have had the pleasure to meet with some of the chapters, and I am very impressed. We have seen its impact in Mali, Central African Republic, Zimbabwe, Tanzania, Nigeria, Kenya. And we know that in many cases, women are the first responders in crisis. And we also know that peace agreements are more likely to last when women participate. And we see examples and evidence of that all over Africa. So we from UN Women's side are very grateful for those who are partnering with AWLN and the network. We're very grateful to the African Union, to Germany present here today, but we also call for more support to this network, more funding. I think it is excellent, and I think we have seen this week during the high-level week that there is a lot of support for gender equality and women's leadership, but we do know that we lack funding and we do lack implementation in reality. And we call for more member states, more donors to support this network. It is very much needed. We want to continue to strengthen our partnership with the African Union, with AWLN, and with all the governments present here and all our governments working together with AWLN in their enormously task. Thank you so much.
Thank you to the Executive Director for UN Women, Ms. Asa Regner. And indeed, we believe that we need to make a call to action for more member states, more donors, and to address the issue when it comes to lack of funding. Your Excellencies, it's my honor as the African Union Chairperson's Youth Envoy. My name is Chido Mpemba, and I'll be moderating the session, a high-level plenary intervention focusing on effective approaches for women's leadership, multilateral systems, and global affairs, women contribution to peace, stability, and sustainability. Reflecting on the current global crisis, peace, stability, humanitarian food insecurity, and additionally, recommendations for youth inclusion for effective participation of young women in leadership. And today, we will hear from Her Excellency, Mrs. Minata Samate Kesuma, our AU Commissioner for Health, Humanitarian and Social Affairs Department of the African Union Commission. We'll also get to hear from His Excellency, Mamadou Tangara, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, International Cooperation, and Gambians abroad of the Republic of Gambia. And lastly, from Her Excellency, Madame Eva Baisaba, the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Environment for the DRC. And Lindeka Nzenze, the representative of Standard Bank. When conflict happens, the rule of law breaks down. Freedom of movement is restricted, institutions and services are weakened, creating a lack of access to social services, information, and to food and livelihoods. This situation affects the entire population, but it disproportionately affects women and young girls. Without further ado, I will give the floor to Her Excellency Mrs. Minata Samate Kisama, our African Union Commissioner for Health, Humanitarian and Social Affairs. Today, she's leading our social affairs, working very closely with women as well as with youth. As you know, in May, we held a humanitarian summit, which she graciously led and also incorporated the young people as we held a youth humanitarian summit, being included in the voice to add on humanitarian issues across the continent. She has previously led an initiative on women political participation. and would love to give the floor to her to address the women in this room and the he for she's that have joined us today. Thank you.
Merci, Madame la modératrice. Je suggère qu'on rende le protocole pour donner la parole à notre frère qui est un strong hip pour Chi, le ministre Tangara qui est avec nous. Je prendrai la parole après lui.
Merci beaucoup, ma sœur Minata, pour cet honneur. I would sincerely want to greet all of you here, and particularly Excellency Madam Ellen Sirleaf Johnson. And I want us to pay special tribute to her. It's important that we pay tribute to our heroes and sheroes when they are alive. It's under the leadership of Her Excellency Madam Ellen Sirleaf Johnson that the Gambia was able to avert a civil war during the impasse, the political impasse in the Gambia. She was then chairing the authority of heads of states of ECOWAS. And thanks to her wise leadership, we were able to resolve peacefully a very serious situation. And I still remember when my then boss was trying to manipulate her, calling her on the phone without her knowledge, and it was live on TV, trying to put words into her mouth, but he failed awfully. And as she rightly put it, she then said that that shows the kind of person he is. And we were able to resolve this very serious crisis. Madam, thank you. You will be remembered in the history books of the Gambia. And I want to assure my dear sister and colleague, Dr. Naledi Pando, that my delegation is composed of very strong women. And next to me is our ambassador to the African Union, and those who work with her know the kind of work she is doing. In fact, talking about the inclusion of youth and women, when she was first appointed, well, it's off the record, but we are talking under the Chatham House rule here. People are complaining, they're saying that she's a woman, she's young, but the president decided to maintain her. And today, the president called her her ambassador, my ambassador, because she performed far better than all of the ambassadors, and that's why we sent her to the African Union. In Africa, I come from a society of oral tradition. Before any gathering, we have griots who will sing the deeds of great people. And we have great women in our society, like Yasin Bubu. Madam Binte Job know about Yasin Bubu. We know Fenda Sane in the Cabo Empire. Cabo is a very interesting empire where women were occupying leadership position, where power was vested into people through the women. Et comme on le disait, le pouvoir se transmettait non pas par la barbe, mais par le ventre. Et si on est sûr de qui est le nom, les femmes portaient le nom, les enfants plutôt portaient le nom de leur maman. Mais the children will carry the name of their mother, not of the father. Because they say, if you are sure who your mother is, you are certainly not sure of who your father is. And today, if you are to run DNA tests, sometimes you will have some unpleasant surprise. And in Africa, we had great women like Queen Nzinga, and not far from in our region, Funmilayo Anikulapo Kuti, who fought for more participation of women in local governing bodies. So we have a rich history, a rich past to draw inspiration that will enable us to shape the future. And we invoke the past, what the French call le devoir de mémoire, in order to ask the current generation, our contemporaries, to surpass themselves, and by surpassing themselves, they will build a better future, shape a better future. And I want to recognize also the role of the Liberian women in bringing peace in Liberia. And I think that's how they even got a Nobel Prize. And today, the Gambia, we are on the agenda of the Peace Building Commission, and we work closely with the Peace Building Commission. And today, I think the Gambia is a shining example of a successful multilateral joint action. And without the support of the PBC, we would not have been able to implement our transitional justice program, our security sector reform, and even try to implement the National Development Plan, because it was through the help of the UN, the African Union, ECOWAS, that we were able to convene a very successful donor conference. And I really want to thank once again Madam Binta Diop for this initiative and for being the engine behind all this success. And we can assure you of our unflinching support. And I also want to pay tribute to a woman who I'm not seeing her here, Fumzile. I don't know whether she's in the hall. She's online, who is also a great mentor to many young women. And I can cite the example of our own sister, younger sister, Jaha Dukure, a very dynamic young woman. Thanks to the support of Fumzile, she was able to take the bull by the horns and fight seriously, standing on the shoulders of other great women in the Gambia to fight FGM, and that culminated in the ban of FGM. And I think these are ladies that are to be celebrated, and I really want to commend you for, and so thank Germany also for the support, and UN Women, and I wish you a very successful deliberation. And now I yield the floor to my sister. Merci, Madame Tamate, pour cet honneur. Je vous remercie.
Thank you, Your Excellency, our he for she in this room. And we count on your support for the national chapter in Gambia. Thank you. And we'll give the floor back to our commissioner, Madame Minna.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la modératrice Sido, envoyée spéciale pour la jeunesse. Madame Johnson Sirleaf, ancienne présidente du Libéria et patronne de AWLN. Madame la ministre d'Afrique du Sud, la ministre Pandor, merci pour votre soutien, merci pour votre présence. Monsieur le ministre, merci d'être avec nous. On a des hommes avec nous et vous faites partie de ces hommes. Ma sœur Josepha Sako, Madame Bineta Diop, chère amie Louise, commissaire de la République fédérale d'Allemagne. On a d'autres distinguées personnalités qui sont présentes en ligne et chers amis de AWLN. C'est toujours un plaisir pour moi de participer aux événements organisés par AWLN qui nous offrent toujours, en tant que femmes, en tant que leaders, une excellente occasion pour amplifier nos voix et surtout explorer les voies et moyens viables qui permettent la participation des femmes et aujourd'hui au niveau multilatéral et surtout de jouer un important rôle dans la prise de décision, que ce soit au niveau national, continental et mondial. Je tiens à dire merci et réitérer notre gratitude à son Excellence Sirleaf pour avoir dirigé AWLN, nous avoir accompagnés depuis 2017. Merci Madame la Présidente pour votre engagement, pour votre leadership et surtout l'expérience que vous partagez avec nous. Je reconnais aussi et apprécie le rôle et l'engagement de Madame Bineta Diop, qui est une championne pour la cause des femmes, une battante qui a toujours mis l'agenda des femmes comme priorité et durant toute sa vie. Merci Madame Diop, merci aussi pour
avoir guidé aussi AWLN depuis sa création. La réunion d'aujourd'hui, mesdames et messieurs, se tient à un moment où notre continent est confronté à de multiples défis. Nous avons les défis liés au conflit, l'insécurité, les attaques terroristes, l'insécurité même alimentaire, la malnutrition, les impacts de la pandémie, entre autres, et malheureusement, les personnes les plus vulnérables, les plus touchées sont les femmes et les filles, et sans oublier les enfants. Ces facteurs compromettent les acquis que nous avons, et aussi il nous faut travailler justement à mettre fin à ces causes profondes justement qui font que les femmes sont toujours mises à l'écart. Mesdames et messieurs, la paix, beaucoup l'ont dit, la paix, la sécurité, la stabilité sont des éléments clés pour le développement durable. Il est important de nous concentrer justement sur les piliers qui peuvent permettre ce développement durable en se basant sur le capital humain, le développement social, entre autres. Nous avons, en tant qu'Union africaine, les instruments pour permettre l'égalité, mais malheureusement, la mise en œuvre laisse à désirer. C'est un appel que je lance à nos États membres pour qu'on s'approprie, qu'on internalise les instruments que nous avons qui permettront d'atteindre l'égalité hommes-femmes. Nous avons le plan d'action de Maputo qui s'inscrit dans cette dynamique. Et malgré tous ces textes, nous avons des inégalités qui ancrées même dans nos sociétés, dans nos cultures au niveau du continent africain, et cela empêche la participation pleine des femmes et au niveau des plateformes décisionnelles, des plateformes clés. Les femmes continuent malheureusement d'être les victimes de toutes sortes de discriminations, et en ce qui nous concerne, les femmes n'arrivent pas à accéder au travail, un travail décent, et elles sont les plus concernées par les déplacements forcés sur le continent africain, sans oublier les difficultés qu'elles ont sur le plan sanitaire et nutritionnel. Je voudrais prendre un exemple pour illustrer ce que l'Union africaine fait, et surtout en tant que département en charge de ces questions. Je parlerai de la campagne. La campagne sur la réduction accélérée de la mortalité maternelle en Afrique, Karma, qui contribue, c'est un programme qui contribue pour la santé des femmes et surtout favorise de nombreuses initiatives concernant les femmes. On ne saurait trop insister sur la nécessité, si nous voulons justement que les femmes soient présentes sur le plan multilatéral, il faut qu'elles soient en bonne santé, qu'elles ne meurent plus en donnant la vie, que les enfants soient en bonne santé, qu'il n'y ait plus de mortalité néonatale, infantile et surtout des adolescentes aussi qui meurent. Et à travers la décennie que nous avons, il est important que les pays membres puissent s'en approprier. Il y a des progrès qui ont été faits, mais cela ne suffit pas. Il nous faut trouver des solutions justement aux questions de gouvernance. Je dirais la pauvreté et l'inégalité même au niveau de nos sociétés, il faut corriger cela. Tenant au thème de l'année 2022 qui a été déclarée l'année de la nutrition, comment nous pouvons bâtir une résilience en matière de sécurité nutritionnelle et alimentaire sur le continent et renforcer justement les systèmes agroalimentaires. Je suis certaine que la commissaire Josepha reviendra sur cet aspect agroalimentaire, sur la nécessité de travailler pour que les femmes aient à manger et suffisamment en quantité et en qualité, et pour leur permettre aussi d'être en bonne santé. Les chefs d'État ont adopté des décisions, une déclaration avec des priorités. Je n'insisterai pas sur les priorités en raison du temps, mais en mettant en œuvre justement les conclusions des sommets sur les questions alimentaires, je pense qu'on peut en tout cas avoir des femmes qui sont bien nourries, en bonne santé, qui puissent participer aussi aux plateformes de discussion pour leurs droits. Il faut investir dans la résilience en matière de nutrition et de sécurité alimentaire. L'accent est mis sur le renforcement des systèmes agroalimentaires, mais cela ne suffira pas. Il nous faut aller vers une production agricole qui puisse nous permettre d'avoir à manger et en quantité suffisante pour l'ensemble des citoyens africains, particulièrement aujourd'hui avec la crise que nous avons sur le continent africain. Mesdames et messieurs, nous devons nous efforcer de placer un multilatéralisme qui soit efficace et qui soit opérationnel en utilisant les instruments nécessaires que nous avons, en ayant en tête la nécessité d'inclure tout le monde, d'être solidaire et pour que tout le monde puisse participer à ce processus. Il est aussi important d'avoir des institutions, des plateformes qui soient créées au niveau multilatéral, que d'abord au niveau national, au niveau continental et au niveau international pour amener les femmes à cette table de négociation et qu'elles puissent accéder au crédit, qu'elles puissent être autonomes avec des approches qui soient vraiment inclusives et participatives au niveau de la prise de décision. Comme je le disais, nous avons des instruments, il suffit simplement de les mettre en œuvre. J'encourage, nous avons la chance d'avoir les ministres avec nous, j'encourage nos pays, les organisations intergouvernementales, nos partenaires que je salue et toutes les parties à fournir aux femmes et aux filles des plateformes de prise de décision qui respectent l'égalité des sexes, l'autonomisation des femmes et des filles, assurer la sécurité nutritionnelle et sanitaire, d'une manière générale, le respect des droits de l'homme, et ces droits de l'homme aussi concernent les femmes. C'est à ce prix que les femmes et les filles contribueront à la paix, à la sécurité, la stabilité et le développement inclusif de l'Afrique, tel qu'énoncé dans l'agenda 2063 et qu'elle soit présente au niveau multilatéral. Voilà un peu quelques réflexions que je tenais à partager en vraiment remerciant Madame Diop, son équipe et tous ceux qui ont contribué à nous réunir aujourd'hui ici pour échanger et voir comment on peut pousser cet agenda au niveau des femmes. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you, Your Excellency. And indeed, it shows that when women come together, we will have greater impact. I would also like to acknowledge our Commissioner for Agriculture, Rural Development, Blue Economy, and Sustainable Environment, who is with us today and will give us the closing remarks later on, Her Excellency, Madame Sako. Thank you for joining us, and we look forward to hearing your remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, our he for she's, as we move on within the program, I would like to acknowledge the Minister of Industry from Niger, Her Excellency Salamatu Buraka, and would love to give her the floor to give us some remarks. Thank you. Okay, as we prepare.
Bonjour, mesdames et messieurs. Bonjour, Madame Diop. Merci vraiment pour cette invitation. Je n'ai pas préparé une intervention, mais vraiment, je suis très impressionnée par ce que vous faites à travers cette organisation. Et comme je disais à ma voisine, la directrice exécutive de BADEA, nous allons certainement très bientôt rejoindre votre organisation. Ah, madame, voilà. Merci et félicitations pour tout ce que vous faites.
Thank you very much. Would also like to acknowledge Your Excellency, Madam Eve Bazaiba, the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Environment for the DRC, and also just to mention that she was the founder of the first ever national chapter in DRC. And this was done in collaboration with the opposition party and civil society. And I believe this shows us that this is a movement and that women find common ground on gender equality. And indeed, we can come together on this. So without further ado, ma'am, would like to give you the floor.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la modératrice. Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs, je voudrais d'abord commencer par rendre grâce à Dieu pour l'opportunité présente ici à New York une fois de plus, en commençant par rendre des hommages les plus mérités à Madame Ellen Sirleaf Johnson, la présidente de la République honoraire de Libéria. Je ne suis pas étonnée qu'elle puisse nous diriger comme elle le fait actuellement dans le cadre de African Women Leaders Network, parce que je l'ai connue femme forte, ça fait plus de 20 ans, je pense 24 ans aujourd'hui. Elle a été celle qui s'est impliquée pour la paix dans mon pays, en République démocratique du Congo. Pendant les moments très difficiles, le pays était divisé. Si aujourd'hui, malgré les conflits qui perdurent encore dans une certaine mesure, nous pouvons parler d'un pays uni, je dois le reconnaître, c'est grâce à l'apport des femmes africaines. Il y a eu la solidarité féminine, pensant bien entendu par Femme Africa Solidarité. Je mentionne Madame Bineta Diop, aujourd'hui Excellence envoyée spéciale des femmes, paix et sécurité. Lorsque nous avions, nous les femmes congolaises, toqué à la porte de l'Union africaine, nous l'avons trouvé. Il y avait tout un groupe de femmes fortes et comité des femmes africaines pour la paix et le développement. Nous avions eu Madame Bita Diop, nous avions eu Madame Ellen Sirleaf Johnson, nous avions eu Graça Machela, nous avions eu beaucoup d'autres femmes qui étaient impliquées à nous donner la solidarité. Notre pays était divisé. Elles sont venues. Et nous sommes encore en train de travailler avec elles. Elles ont vu nos premiers pas dans le mouvement féminin. Elle me dit toujours, elle était mince, c'est vrai, j'étais toute petite, toute mince. Petit à petit, l'oiseau fait son nid et aujourd'hui, nous sommes obligés aussi de léguer cette implication à d'autres femmes, Excellences, Mesdames et Messieurs, l'implication de la République démocratique du Congo dans AWLN n'est pas vaine. Vous avez entendu la raison. Nous avons tellement eu l'appui des femmes africaines et des femmes du monde dans les situations difficiles que nous avions traversées et nous, ça nous a servi de leçon. Pour venir ici à la création des African Women Leaders Network, c'est vrai, nous sommes venus pluriels mais unis. Vous l'avez entendu, j'étais dans l'opposition, femme parlementaire, et pas n'importe quelle opposition. J'étais accompagnée d'une femme ministre de genre, notre coordonnatrice au niveau du chapitre national et représentante des chapitres nationaux, Madame Son Excellence Marie-Louise Mwange qui est là, et puis une femme Cléopâtre, elle n'est pas ici, c'est de la société civile, Madame Marie-Madeleine Kalala, et nous étions unis. Nous avons représenté la société féminine plurielle de la République démocratique du Congo. Et c'est ce qui s'est fait actuellement, quelles que soient les divisions au pays, nous sommes toujours unis. Et nous souhaiterons qu'il en soit ainsi au niveau de toutes les femmes d'Afrique. Nous n'avons plus de raison. Cette organisation est composée des femmes de valeur, des femmes de qualité, qui ont servi ou d'autres servent encore leur pays au niveau le plus élevé. Nous avons des chefs d'État, nous avons des premiers ministres, nous avons des femmes ministres, nous avons d'autres femmes leaders dans les secteurs privés, nous avons des parlementaires. Nous n'avons pas d'excuses de savoir quels sont les défis qui se trouvent en face de nous dans nos différents pays et en Afrique. Donc, si nous n'amenons pas nos populations vers le développement, ça serait quelque chose d'inexcusable parce que nous maîtrisons, nous connaissons les réalités. Mettons-nous au travail. Mettons-nous au travail parce que nous avons une grande opportunité aujourd'hui, 30 chapitres en Afrique. Donc, notre logo est en train de se consolider, les liens de la toile d'araignée. Nous pouvons donc partager l'expérience les unes et les autres. Donc, c'est inacceptable que nous arrivons en 2030 ou en 2063 par rapport à l'agenda africain que nous puissions continuer à avoir encore l'insécurité, le terrorisme en Afrique. Les femmes, nous savons par où toucher, parce que nous sommes dans nos gouvernements, nous sommes dans nos parlements, nous savons là où ça fait mal. Chez moi, on dit, une maison où vous ne dormez pas, vous ne savez pas où ça sointe. Mais nous dormons toutes en Afrique, nous savons où ça sointe, au nord de l'Afrique, en Afrique de l'Ouest par rapport au terrorisme, en Afrique centrale ou en Afrique australe ou en Afrique de l'Est par rapport au terrorisme, par rapport au sous-développement et à nos richesses que nous avons, que nous ne savons pas les transformer, ces potentiels en richesses pour amener notre peuple au développement. Nous savons là où ça pose problème que les femmes ne puissent pas accéder dans les instances de prise de décision. Il nous suffit seulement de nous mettre au travail. Nous savons qu'il y a les enjeux du climat actuellement. Nous pouvons résister à la crise humanitaire comme la crise de la faim, mais nous ne saurons pas résister à la crise climatique parce que le monde va disparaître. Alors, femmes, lèvons-nous, mettons-nous au travail. Nous avons déjà 30 chapitres et que ces chapitres-là, donnons-nous les responsabilités les unes et les autres dans différents pays par rapport à des problèmes qui se posent dans les concrets. Et pendant ce temps, nous allons continuer à mettre en place d'autres chapitres. Je voudrais ici mettre en contribution, si possible, les femmes du secteur privé, parce que nous avons besoin de moyens financiers. Nous avons Standard Bank aujourd'hui, nous voulons qu'il y ait plusieurs banques. Nous voulons qu'il y ait des ponctionnements, par exemple, et des pourcentages de tout ce qu'il y a comme fonds climat pour donner aux femmes à gérer, à lutter contre le réchauffement climatique. Parce que sans cela, nous n'allons pas avancer. Nous voulons aussi impliquer au plus haut niveau les femmes qui sont dans les secteurs sécuritaires, les femmes de la police nationale, les femmes de l'armée, les femmes des systèmes des services de renseignement et de sécurité. Nous voulons, pourquoi pas, impliquer les femmes scientifiques, les chercheurs, que nous ayons aussi des femmes les plus présentes dans le milieu des technologies de l'information et des communications. Nous voulons mettre toutes ces femmes en contribution parce que justement, je vais paraphraser le he for she qui était ici, le président de la Commission de l'Union africaine, le futur est féminin. Je vous remercie.
Well, thank you very much for the powerful remarks, Madam Eva Baiza. As we move on to the program, we've spoken a lot about financing, and I think we've heard this quite a lot about putting our money where our mouth is. And I believe this is where we move to, in addition to the wonderful remarks that we've heard, to speak about the concrete solutions that are going to be put in place in this regard. And exciting news that we're going to hear today from Standard Bank. So ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I would like to give the floor to Ms. Lindeka Zedze from representing Standard Bank to address us.
Thank you. I'm going to learn French because I want to hear it in the original format, not the translation. That was powerful. Thank you. Firstly, I'd like to say it is a great honor and really a privilege to be here. For us, Standard Bank, we do not take the work that is being done in this room very lightly. My job is simple. It is really to share the news of the work that started here, of the work that is really an initiative of the leadership and the pioneers that are sitting in this room. By way of introduction, my name is Lindeka Zedze. I'm a South African by birth, but really proud African, the child of the soil. The African Women Impact Fund is really an initiative of this room. We as Standard Bank, we are given the task to establish the fund, to operationalize it. And the main objective of the fund is really to create a sustainable platform to grow women-owned and women-led fund management businesses. And I think there's an investment that goes through small, medium enterprises. But what we recognize is that we want women to make decisions at the macro level. We want women to manage the millions and billions of dollars and have the ability to then invest in women-owned businesses, or at the very least, apply a gender lens when making investment decisions. And that means also changes in the policy. A lot has been said about stereotypes in terms of gender. And also when you look at racial biases, they have a very detrimental effect in society globally. And this still holds true for the investment community. The challenge with this is that it limits, it obstructs the empowerment of women. It limits the appointment of women in key leadership roles. It limits women making decisions, sitting in the boardroom and being able to change policies, being able to make sure that women are represented and are actually also employed to drive businesses. And that has a very detrimental effect in terms of the growth of the continent, in terms of the development, in terms of financial inclusion. And that is the goal of the fund. The goal is really to enable and promote women-led, women-owned management businesses. What COVID has done, I think we were under the leadership of Dr. Vera Shongo, who's not here, we made a bold announcement, our intention to actually launch the fund at the AU Summit in 2020. Madam Diop was there, and I'd like to thank her for always supporting us and being our champion for an unwavering support. And at the time we made that announcement, COVID happened. Funds were diverted elsewhere. But what really COVID has done is shine the light on the plight of women across sectors globally, and the role that we still take and where we participate predominantly at the margins of society. And what the fund is looking to do is to make sure that some of those investment, and a huge portion of it, is driven into these businesses. What has happened since COVID? You've seen money flow into responsible investing, where businesses are paying a very, very critical spotlight and attention to social issues, to environmental, to governance. But our challenge is that we feel that the S is still left behind and is not explicit in it. And as a result of that, you're still seeing biases when investors or those that hold capital make allocation decisions. And what we aim to do is rally and really drive the people that sit with the patient capital that are willing to not only look for financial returns, which we aim to make. This is not Special Olympics. Investing in women doesn't mean diminish the returns, but we want people that are also want to drive women economic empowerment on the continent. We want people that want to see women strive. The case has been made, and we don't need to repeat that. We know that women, that those that invest in women in the business that are run by women show far more financial returns. So what we seek to do is make sure that we create that environment by providing an infrastructure. And this is where also Standard Bank will put our money where our mouth is. We want to make sure we supply them with the entire ecosystem that they need to make sure their businesses are successful. What we've done as a fund, and this is a part that we're told that, and I listen when my leaders speak, that as much as we acknowledge, as much as we recognize our challenges, we should make sure we celebrate our successes. We should make sure we do not forget that our work is not in vain, that its struggles are also not in vain. We're making progress. But this is still the progress that I feel the pace of change should be accelerated. Madam Diop said, we're saying we want to raise this fund to 10 billion. She says, no, 5 years, not 10 years. We want to see it while we're still here. And I think for me, I'm very encouraged. I'm really energized, invigorated, and excited to actually make sure that this network, these pioneers, this leadership is really still supporting us. And we actually going to grow even more closer ties to ensure the continuity, the consistency, and the support that is actually being shown and that is actually going to continue. The way this is going to be done is that we're looking to raise capital for women to manage. These are women that have done these businesses elsewhere, but they're setting up their own businesses. We want to make sure where investment businesses take place, where a woman is in charge, those businesses are incentivized to also make sure they employ more women, that women have equity in their businesses, that they're participating, that their policies speak to gender, and that we see this thing, this drive continuing. And out of that, we also recognize that you do not want to have 5 today and 5 in 10 years and 10 in 30 years' time. We want to build the next generation of women to create critical mass. And that means that the partners that we work with, that is Restura, there's a fundraising element of it, then there's a fund management, fund development work that takes place. This is where we capacitate the businesses of the women by making sure that the operational infrastructure that they have is solid. And not only is it solid and viable, that they pass the operational due diligence, which is very important to investors. And we provide network opportunities. We leverage our relationships, and we get together to learn, to shorten the journey on the gap so that they can learn from each other. But in this room, I just noticed a yellow jacket, and I realized one of our anchor investors is in the room. And Fatima, I see you. You were supposed to be with us on Monday, but you were late. And this is Badea, and they were the first people to actually invest in the fund 2 years ago. And they were not just, they were the first people. Thank you for that applause. And this is where you have Africans backing each other, Africans supporting each other, believing in each other, so that we can show the world that we're not just talking, but we mean business. We want these things to happen now. We're done talking. So I salute you, Badea. But Madam Diop is not talking today, and I would like to make sure that I would salute the governments that were there with us at the AU and made the pledges to the fund. We had the government of Rwanda, we had South Africa, we had Senegal. These are governments that put their money where their mouth is. And I am proud today to hear that there's an AWLN chapter in South Africa. I'm encouraged to hear that this chapter is growing. There's 30, there'll potentially be more. So for me, it is to say that we launched the fund on Monday with $60 million. That is hard to do. Thank you. This is just the beginning. The aim is $1 billion, but it looks like the aim is 10 from where we're headed. And I think the call to action is, you are here today, you gave birth to this fund. There will be no African Women Impact Fund without you. And really the call to action and our humble request is that this relationship does not end, and we carry on and we raise more. And for that, I would like to say thank you. Merci beaucoup. Asante sana. Really, thank you from the bottom of my heart. I'm encouraged and I'm excited. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I would like to recognize Ambassador Rebecca Otengo, our co-chair in Addis Ababa, and the Friends of AWLN. May you kindly address the floor.
I'm sorry. But it's okay. I would like to, first of all, stand on the existing protocols. And I would like to appreciate more especially our own president, President Johnson Sirleaf, for the wonderful work that you've been doing. And I would like to tell the young people who are in this room, and I think that's the important information that I would like to give you, that there is no mentorship session that you can have rather than having the kind of people that spoke to you today in this room. And even if some have gone out, I would propose that we clap for them. Madam Diop, I would like to report to you and appreciate you in this room that the last chapter that you kind of commission was in Uganda. And that time, Uganda was going for elections. And you left very strong messages to the extent that the cabinet moved from 20-something% women to over 34%. I would like to thank you on that. Many young people came on board, including the vice president, the prime minister, 3 ministers of health, education, 1 for agriculture, energy, trade, finance, especially in investment, integration, and 1 in defense. I would like to say that we should repeat what our president said, that we've made some strides, but sometimes we only look at the negative side. Having said that, we should not forget those in vulnerable situations. The women that are in the IDP camps, those who are refugees, yet they must make a contribution. We've always said they're also building blocks. And therefore, ours is to say in every situation, a woman can still make a contribution. We've decided as members of the Peace and Security Council, and I would like to give a testimony that my colleague, the ambassador of Gambia, has taken it upon herself that we must look at the children affected by conflict, and she chairs that forum. And I would like to say thank you to you before you are minister. The women that we are speaking about started as young women. And Your Excellency, Madame Johnson Sirleaf, may I report to you that a few months ago, the Special Envoy, Sido, represented the chairperson of the commission in Uganda. He brought together over 800 young people in a symposium. And the way she spoke, she moved the country to commit to another 1 million level, reaching out to the youth by my president, President Museveni, through her team. And they're already working on that. Would like to say thank you. The inclusion of women in finances is the backbone of what makes whatever we speak about move forward. We have good plans, we have good networks, but we need to facilitate it using the finances. And I would like to thank Standard Bank for having made this contribution. We never take it for granted. Last but not least, our chair, Dr. Faki, would like to add that Dr. Faki, because he graduated recently and we must celebrate that, he has given us space and we are doing a lot using the same space while he's in office, and we want it to be a legacy for his leadership. Finally, Fatima, the one who takes care of this office. We at the African Union headquarters look at you as a pillar representing us in New York because of the way you do your work. We do appreciate you because you never shy down. Whatever is supposed to be done, and you are always available. You travel to Addis Ababa and you make sure you meet us. May we say thank you and wish all the women the best. And may I say that the future is the woman. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much, Ambassador Rebecca Otengo, for such powerful words. Thank you very much. Would also like to thank Ms. Linde Kadzedze, Siyabonga. Thank you very much for the pledges that you've introduced today, and indeed putting the money where the mouth is. And I believe this is just the beginning of more to come. Without further ado, would also like to present requests for the UNDP representative in the House to give us some remarks. I believe that I believe that UNDP has also played a significant role when it comes to the peace and security aspect at the African Union, and would like to give you the floor. Yeah. It's okay, we'll correct it, don't worry. I was UNDP until 4 months ago, so it's fine. I think that's how you recognize me. So, Excellency President and Excellency Madame Diop, I am quite grateful actually to my sister Excellency Salamatu for giving me the opportunity to be actually energized towards the end of the week. I think nothing is more inspiring than seeing women at a leadership position and also seeing the he for she. But I think it's a great momentum because we are here celebrating the African woman. And this whole week for us in Badia, I think I arrived actually on the launch of the fund, but I was not prepared. I came from the airport, I dashed literally to the room. I was there and I avoided the cameras because I was still with my travel bags. Because there was no time to check in with the traffic of crazy New York. I think the fund itself was a dream of Dr. Vera Songe. And I think I want to acknowledge and appreciate her, even though she's not with us here today. But I think it was her leadership, it was her baby, and Badia was happy to support that dream to make it through in terms of the design and the investment itself. The fund is one of our signature contribution that we put it as a flagship of Badia 2030, which is basically looking at the opportunities of closing the gender gap in development in Africa. And we're looking at opportunities of gender investment. I was happy also to represent Badia in the roundtable that was conducted by His Excellency, the President of Niger, for bridging the gap in girls' education. And I would say that we remain open. I'm the part of Badia's family, and I moved from the UN family, so I'm very well educated in terms of gender and women leadership. I studied in a woman-only university in Sudan that was founded by the pioneer of the girls' education in Sudan. So there is no men in our university apart from the dean who inherited the business from his father. So if you have anything to do with Badia and in terms of future investment for closing the gender lens, you consider you have a sister in Badia. Finally, I would say the future is a female if she is educated. And I think we should all be the education advocate for the future of the girls in Africa. Thank you, Ms. Fatima, the strategic advisor to the Director General at Badia, formerly with UNDP, for such powerful remarks. And ladies and gentlemen, we would like to open the floor. This is a space for one intervention from the floor. The floor is open. And would like to acknowledge Mr. Jibril Diabla, the President and CEO for Africa Renaissance and Diaspora Network, who is with us today and would like to give the floor to you to give us some remarks.
Thank you very much. I would like to salute the wonderful President, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. I had the great luck of being Director of Communications of UNDP and getting her guidance when she was Assistant Administrator, Assistant Secretary General of the United Nations, and Director of the Africa Bureau of UNDP. I traveled extensively with President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf and learned a lot from you, Ellen. Thank you very much again for your guidance. Very, very happy to see you. Secondly, Binta Diop, as was mentioned, has been the driving force, which has been really pushing not only the UN system, but also civil society organizations and other partners. Growing up in the United Nations, I'm now leading an organization whose main mandate is to popularize the Sustainable Development Goals in Africa and the diaspora using entry points, very, very important, which is when we popularize the SDGs, how do we make sure that we use as entry point the issue of bridging the gap between women and men? And we, since 2019, decided to use the convening powers of sports and culture to give a red card to all forms of discrimination and violence against women and girls. We're doing it jointly with the United Nations, UNDP, UN Women, UNFPA, among others, and also with FIFA. As you know, in football, what they call soccer in the United States, when you give a red card, what happens? You're out. So we want to throw out of the field any forms of discrimination and violence against women and girls. And to do that, we want to remind everybody that the International Declaration of Human Rights was signed 74 years ago. And today, again, there's still violation against women. So that violation against women is violation against all of us. So that the he for she stands, because men need to be engendered. Men need to be sensitive to gender. So we are hoping by 21st of November, which is the opening of the FIFA World Cup, to get 1 million signatures for this, and we have already gotten more than 1 million. So you can go online, even here, www.redcardpledge.com and sign your pledge that we learn to erase from the face of this earth any forms of discrimination, any form of violence against women and girls. The Human Development Report of UNDP, I speak under the guidance of President Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, says that no country in the world treats its women as well as it does its men. So that we've got to fight the apartheid of gender like we fought apartheid in South Africa. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for such powerful remarks. And we'd like to give the floor to UNDP, if we have a representative from UNDP in the house. Kindly address them.
Thank you, Your Excellency, the Foreign Minister, for catching this. But I feel like UNDP has spoken. Fatma, our senior and elder there, maybe to just say a few words about how we're all the alumni of development, and underdevelopment is at the root cause of all of these issues, inequality and women's issues. And since we're speaking a lot about UNDP, we've done quite a few things that are very exciting in terms of our own actions to empower women. And can I put on the spot my colleague Elena, who's part of a project that we're doing with the African Union to bring in fellows who are actually being groomed for future leadership positions. So we're investing in the future already, together with the African Union and the Special Envoy. Madame Diop, thank you so much for the opportunity. It's been a long day and colleagues have been here and all has been said. But just to say that we're with you every step of the way, and I bring you greetings of Ahuna Isyakonwa, who's our Regional Bureau Director for Africa. And Madam President Johnson Sirleaf, huge fan. I read the book. I've been to Liberia. We stand on your shoulders. So thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a great honor this afternoon to share this platform with the Special Envoy on Women, Peace and Security. I believe it's the time for co-leadership and intergenerational leadership. Therefore, standing and sitting with women of great stature, dignity, and focus who are leading in various organizations and institutions, we salute you and we look up to you as the young women. This afternoon, I'm overjoyed that we join hands in sharing ideas, experiences, and good practices in our quest to achieve our clarion goals as set in Agenda 2063, synchronized with the UN Sustainable Development Goals for poverty-free, corruption-cleared, and forward-moving Africa. I'll therefore hand over the mic back to Madam Diop.
Thank you so much, the youth leader, our leader. Let me just say that I'm so amazed to see Madam Ellen Johnson Sirleaf still sitting and being with us. Thank you, Madam, for that, being patient. It's so amazed to see ministers and minister, thank you, because having a he for she coming from the beginning, be patient, waiting, and making sure that you listen to the women. Normally you just come, made a speech and go. And that is what, taking your time, and thank you, the he for she. And I say the same thing with the ministers that are still in the room that I have seen very patiently. I know your agenda is very full, but I wanted to thank you so much. I wanted just to say, Madam Sako is going to make the closing remark. Madam, you want to go to the podium to close our meeting. But before we do that, let me just highlight few issues while Madam Sako is going to, our commissioner is going to close the meeting. I think today we have met at the margin of the 77th session of the UN General Assembly. I think what we celebrate today, we have celebrated our 30 national chapter, and where we commit today, we have more than 1 million women, but we commit to have 5 more million, and I think that was done by the chair of the national chapter, Madame UNGA, and we will all work under the leadership of our chairperson, Musafaki Mohammed, but guided by our patron, which is Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. So we will as we have seen, to have the fund and Dr. Vera Songwe must be with us on the line, say that we need to mobilize 1 billion. And we started today with 60 million. It's very small, but I'm sure that the women that are waiting, the women entrepreneurs, they are going to benefit from this fund. So again, I'm not going through the whole summary that have been given to me, but just to highlight those. And one single thing that we say we take from here is with the young people, the innovation that have been mentioned, that to accelerate, we need that. But we say the future is female. I think we are really, I think it's even today, the chairperson have said it. Madam, you have given us this guidance. The future is now, and we need to create more Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. The Amuja project, project that she's leading, which is about political participation, women leadership everywhere. And she cannot sleep. She's mobilizing resources. She say, I wanted to see, why am I alive? I want to see young women on top. She have mentioned it again today, highlighted very strongly that the African Union itself as a body, as president, maybe at the minister we have many, and we have male who are gender sensitive. But what we need is to say more in the 54 countries, head of state. We have Mama Samia from Tanzania. We need to see more of them. We have also the president of Ethiopia. She is also Mama Sali Workswede. She's also another one. We need to have more women leaders, flourishing everywhere. So the national chapter, and here I know that Gambia will be the next one. I'm pushing. Gambia will launch, and by the end of the year, I'm sure that we will reach the 35. There are countries that are on the pipeline, and we are very happy to see more national chapters. So I stopped there and wanted really to thank all my sisters in the room, the commissioners. They, I know, Minata, all of you are very busy, but everywhere, wherever AWLN is meeting, you are being there, mobilizing, making sure that your program is understood by everybody. And I really wanted to thank you and thank the AWLN Youth Caucus. They are on the line, your caucus of the AWLN. So all the other pillars of AWLN, the national chapters that are online. And lastly, Pumzile Mlamonguka. Let me thank her because she's a co-convener like me. We have been working hand in hand together. Without her, we will not be where we are. When she started 25 chapters with who was leading, we're still leading this process. They say, I want 25 chapters and I want UN Women to put money here. And the team of UN Women is here. We need to clap for them. Thank you so much. For the team of PABI who have done great work. Thank Germany, but also thank South Africa. I see my sister ambassador. Without you, we will not be here today. You really, with your team, you work very hard to have this session. So I really wanted to thank you for Mato, because you are an activist. You and me, we have been in Sudan together on Solidarity Mission before you become ambassador here. So many of this room are activists before becoming ministers or ambassadors or commissioners. So this is the work that you have done, is your work. Thank to our interpreters who are in the room. Thank everybody. And I'm sure Madame Sako will do that as well. So merci Madame, merci d'être disponible, d'être venu, de nous avoir soutenus et de continuer. Nous avons besoin de votre wisdom, the vision, but the wisdom. We want that. And we pray for you to continue to guide us. Merci beaucoup. Madam Josefa Leonel Correa Sacco is the Commissioner in Rural Development, Blue Economy, but also the sustainable environment. So it's a big portfolio in the African Union Commission, but we have been with you, seeing what you have done in establishing, the platform for women in agriculture, but continuing to work on the blue economy, which is also other resources that women need to benefit from. So you close our meeting, Madam Commissioner.
Thank you very much, dear sister, for giving me the floor. We first of all start with the protocol. Her Excellency Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, the former president of the Republic of Liberia, and also Eileen Patron. Thank you very much for honoring us in your presence. You are a role model. You did very, very, very good work on peace in Liberia. I come from Angola and I know what is the war, but Liberia, under your under your stewardship, you really did a lot and you made us women proud. You are a role model. We are following you. Wherever you are, we are with you. Thank you very much. Honorable ministers and Minister Ifoshi from the Republic of the Gambia, thank you for joining us in this journey. it's very important because when we're talking about gender, gender is about it, women and men. So really thank you for us coming, getting your time. We know that our agendas are very, very tight during this time of hunger, but you had time to be here with us and to listen. As a Minister of Foreign Affairs, you will know the core issues that we are going through. So I would like also to thank you for your presence and Excellency's ambassadors present here. I can recognize my sister from the Gambia. Thank you very much for joining us in this journey. It's very important. My dear sister Minata, my dear sister and colleague, Commissioner Minata, and my dear sister Binata Job, I thank you very much and I thank you for the opportunity you're giving us to share what we're doing because communication is very important. We do a lot in African Union, Excellency, but not much things we be, really putting it, that, giving it value for what we've been doing, mostly for women. So it's an opportunity, this type of platform, for us to be here and share and also announce what we are doing. Because before I came to the African Union, I used to ask questions, what is the relevance of African Union? What are they doing? But we are doing a lot with our organs, the PRC, the special envoy. So we are all really working together and we showcase because during the COVID-19 pandemic, Africa was really, really, really in coordination. We all worked together. We found a solution. So I think this is the way forward, coordination among all of us. Distinguished participant colleagues from African Union Commission here present and all protocol duly observed. So it is my privilege and honor to address the closing session of what has been a very fruitful and engagement event. We had from different speakers here this evening about your experience. We shared the experience. We took good note about all the challenges we're still facing. So this is no doubt challenging time for the world, as we heard from several speakers, what we are going through about really moving speed of our agenda. Decades of progress because of the COVID-19 and all these shocks, mostly the shocks that my sector, agriculture, has been going through for the past 5 years. So we've been going through one shock to another. And we also have this constant, and I call on to politicians like Minister of Foreign Affairs to stop the war in Africa. Crisis is one of the problems that also disrupt, all the value chain of agriculture. So our farmers, they suffer and they have to be displacing from one end to another. So we need peace on the continent so that we can really, deliver on our Agenda 2063, which is a very important agenda for really providing job for our children, our youth, that they need to have job and they don't have, they are dying in the Mediterranean. So Africa has all this potential to really work together. So with this, I would like to really share some of the experience of this important sector because we are now going to this food crisis, which we can prevent if we really try to address the challenges and mitigate the effect of COVID-19 pandemic, which is still there, but we are trying to take a response solution in terms of the department. We are also facing one of the war in Europe, the Russia and Ukrainian crisis, which is severely affecting. I would say it's affecting in terms of cereals and fertilizer, because 30% of our imports comes from that region, those two countries. So it's really affecting us also because unfortunately we are net importer. 35 countries in Africa, they're net importers. So that is why when we have this type of shocks, we don't have enough food to feed our population. So amid multiple crises that we've been going, poverty in Africa is increasing for the first time in the generation. Targeted by the COVID-19 pandemic, as I say, and exacerbated by numerous internal and external shocks including climate change. We know that agriculture in Africa is rain-fed, so we depend on climate change and environment for us to produce our food, and also lack of investing on research because our yield is the lowest on the, comparing to other regions globally. So the disproportionate, impact of these shocks on the most vulnerable population, particularly women and children and displaced people, it's of significant concern. My colleague Minata, she's in charge of humanitarian. So we had in Malabo about 3 months ago, pledging a conference in order to assist our displaced people. So in this uncertain time, actions-oriented solutions are more ever necessary to contribute to the solution. Against this background, we have heard from several speakers on how we can mobilize African women and leaders across the globe to reflect and propose concrete solutions to the current full global crisis, including the threat of peace, stability, and inclusive and sustainable development in our continent. My major takeaway from this meeting is that in the sector where I work, which is primarily agriculture, blue economy, and climate change, the African Union put in place various measures to respond to the crisis. And I will briefly speak to few of them during all this crisis we have. We are working actively with various institutions to assist member states respond to the food crisis. This includes with the African Development Bank and the African Union, we launched an initiative which is called the African Emergency Food Production Facility. And the bank was able to put to disburse $1.5 billion for the next 4 planting years with some crops, 4 crops we elected 4 crops: wheat, maize, rice, and soybeans. So the project is on. 35 countries in our continent are already benefiting from these facilities. I will call upon Minister present here. If your country hasn't, please can you tell your Minister of Agriculture to collaborate with, ask the Minister of Finance, which is the focal point of the African Development Bank, to really ask for these facilities, which is very important because we want to produce 38.5 million tons of cereals on our continent because we don't want to be dependent of external markets. The second action, due to the 30% of the fertilizer we utilize, it's from Russia. And then we put in place African Union, UNGA, and Afrexim Bank. We put in place about a month ago the African Trade Exchange platform. And the Afrexim Bank put a $4 billion facility to mitigate the Russia-Ukraine crisis in Africa. So this is really mostly, this platform will be mostly for trading in fertilizer for our farmers. Another milestone also with it is the World Bank that provided $3 billion. That is the first time the World Bank is really investing in agriculture. So $3 billion were given to Africa in order to address the issues of food insecurity, food system. And out of these $3 billion, $826 million were given to West Africa and the Central Africa. And the Horn of Africa and Southern Africa, we got $2.3 billion for the food system resilience program for Eastern and Southern Africa region. So those are really the effort we are doing, because most of the time we have the program, but we don't have investment. We don't have access to finance. So this is very good news because we have 3 institutions that are working with us in this time of responding to all these shocks, mostly the COVID-19 pandemic, climate change, as well as the Russia and the Ukrainian crisis. So determined to counter to worsen food security and nutrition situation in Africa, the African Union, my department, we are organizing with some partners, the International Federation of Red Cross, FAO, and the African Development Bank. We are organizing a high-level security and the nutrition conference, because this is the year of nutrition, strengthening food security and getting resilience in food security and nutrition in Africa. So on the 10th of October, we are organizing at the headquarters in Addis Ababa a meeting with the ministers of agriculture, finance, and trade to see how we can really implement, all these tools that we have in terms of the food system summit that we had last year here in New York during in the margin of the UNGA that we had last year. So we are really working hard, and we believe that this meeting that we are going to have on the 10th of October will be the result. It will be like a brainstorming with all of us to find a solution, and then under the championship of President Macky Sall that wants to organize a summit or a high-level meeting next year in January because of the food crisis. So we believe that this meeting that we are going to have next month in Addis Ababa will serve as a baseline for future decisions of our head of state, because in February we have the General Assembly. So this is the way forward we are doing. So we are also still on the same page. What are we doing for women? Because here we are focusing in women. So we've been doing, because under the blue economy, we've been doing a lot of advocacy on women in fishery, because this is another source of protein for the food security. So we have about 23% of women are involved in fishery, mostly not in catching fish, but mostly in the processing and trading, selling. So we have already got some support from the EU, and we organized the first ever workshop for this Association of Women in Fishery. And this year, during the International Rural Women Day on the 15th of October, I'm inviting all of you to participate. We are going to hold it in Mozambique with the women in fishery. So we also now working with the UN, UN Women in looking at a policy of women in agriculture, women in fishery, and women in environment. Those are the purviews of this department. So we really want to, have all the programs to have a human perspective aspect so that we can empower women in those important areas. So we are also organizing with the Canadian. Yesterday, I had a bilateral meeting with the Canadian Minister of Foreign Investment. We are organizing in a COP27 the climate smart agricultural side event for women, so that we will know that how can women be engaged in this new innovation of climate smart agriculture. So those are the areas that I would like to share with you. We have our platform already, the Women in Agriculture, but we want to extend, because when you talk of food security, it's about livestock, it's about fishery, it's about climate change, it's about all this. So we want to federate, and then we are going to follow this platform that we can assess and share experience amongst us. I thank you very much for your kind attention. And I think I am the one to declare the meeting closed. Thank you very much for attending our meeting. Muito obrigada. Merci beaucoup. Shukran. Asante sana. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. We want to, Fatu and team, we want to thank Fatu. We want to thank the team of Ambassador Fatima, everybody. Thank you for coming. Thank you.